heart is full. This is not even in my speech, but I see so many faces, familiar faces. I haven't been back for 2 years, and I'm just so honored to be here. I'm honored to be here today to celebrate all of you for raising funds and awareness for women in need. Counseling changes lives. You being here will change a life. Thank you. I'm thankful to my family and friends who near and far have shown your support to Jack and Charlie and myself over the past 4.5 years. Your kindness, care, and words of encouragement made and still make an impact in our healing. Know you do and still make a difference. On days when we need it most, we know we have so many who love and support us. We are forever grateful. I want to acknowledge the few who have never left my side, who have quietly stood by me, never afraid of who I was, what I was saying, who I was becoming, or who I am now. You never judge. You always empathize. You always listen. You are a beautiful gift I have been given, and all I can ever say is thank you. I'm here to celebrate the professional counselors and staff at Samaritan, to honor the amazing work you do every day. You help people like me and my boys find their way through pain and suffering after tragedy hits, and you guide them to accept and live the new life that they must live. We don't have a choice. We have to change. You teach us we have to do the work to move from despair to surviving to thriving. Thank you for your empathy, your compassion, your professionalism, and the tireless work that you do. You play a powerful role in this community and beyond. Most importantly, I want to thank my boys, Jack and Charlie. You have suffered, you have grieved, you had to change. But you found goodness in your life, and you are truly living. Your strength, courage, compassion, humor, resilience, and bravery amaze me. I am proud of you every day. Your dad would be so proud of you too. The three of us have struggled these past years, most than most people know, but we've gotten to the other side. We did it together. You were my purpose, you are my hope, and you are the reason I am standing here today. I love you both, and I am so honored to be your mom. Suicide does more than take a life. It devastates lives all around it, and no one is the same afterwards. On Friday, September 7th, 2012, the devastation began. My husband of 16 years, my best friend of 20 years, the father to my 9 and 12-year-old beautiful boys, he left that morning for work, and he never came back. I never saw his beautiful smile again. I never heard his voice or his booming laugh. He just never came home. I was 40 years old, living a lovely life. Was it perfect? No. Whose life is perfect? I had a loving husband, happy and healthy children, close family and friends. Life was busy, stressful, yet stable and so good. In one moment, that life was over. My husband, Patrick, died. He died by suicide. He struggled with OCD. I knew he had anxiety, but he hid his depression. I did not see it coming. The Sandra I knew, she died that day too. Just imagine it all being gone in a moment. My life blew into a million pieces, and devastation began. My life, beautiful, safe, secure, planned with purpose, full of love, full of meaning, disappeared. Instead, I welcomed grief, despair, worry, sadness, pain, terror, rage, suffering, fear, and hopelessness. It stood at my door waiting for me, and when the door opened, it rushed in and it took me over. Instantly, the chaos of my new life began. Confusion set in. Darkness and disbelief of Pat dying by suicide engulfed me. I was in shock. But more importantly, what happened that day is my sons, Jack and Charlie, they lost their dad. The man who loved them more than anything. They lost their innocence. They lost their future of what they believed to be true. Their deep suffering and unimaginable pain began too. What I had to do on that day was impossible for my mind to grasp. I had to tell my boys, their dad died. and I was terrified. 2 boys, 9 and 12. Please sit on the couch, we have to talk. 3 words, I had to say them. Your dad died. Words I knew would change their lives forever. Words most children never hear. Words no child should ever hear. Telling Jack and Charlie their father died was the most difficult and will be forever the most painful and torturous thing I will ever have to do. They were living a great life, a life with a dad who loved them, a life with no fear, terror, pain, hurt, guilt, shame, or longing. A life that was so good, so right, so beautiful. I waited to tell them. I waited until school was over that day. I had to give them every last second in that life before they had to walk through the door of darkness, grief, and the unknown into their new life. They would grow up in a heartbeat. They would experience pain no human should feel. They were just little boys. 2 little boys I told their dad died, but I did not tell them it was suicide that day. I knew they had to know it was suicide. Some wanted me to lie. It was not suicide, Sandra. Then who killed him, I asked. I will not lie. I knew at that moment I would honor Pat's life and his struggles with mental illness with truth. I knew I had to forever be completely honest with myself and with Jack and Charlie. Complete transparency. From the very beginning, something in me shifted. At that moment, I knew that all that mattered were the 3 of us. Others' opinions, comments, judgments, suggestions, advice, needs, I didn't care. I only cared about them. It was on me to make sure they came out of this hole. Nobody else, me. I had to tell them it was suicide, but I could not say the words. What do I tell them? What words do I use? Am I going to destroy them by saying too much? They are little boys. I can't do this. I needed help. I needed help from a professional counselor. I begged for someone to find me someone. Friends and family made calls all weekend. Who can help me? Who knows what to say? Who knows what to do? They found someone, a professional counselor from Samaritan Counseling Center. This counselor said he could come over Sunday night and help me tell the boys. Please have him come. And in the darkness, there was light. A stranger was offering his care, his empathy, his compassion, and his expertise to help my family in need. He came to my door. He talked to my family and I about suicide as the boys were downstairs waiting with friends. He told me I was doing the best thing for the boys and I by being honest about Patrick's death and his illness. He told me how to tell them, what to say, how to answer their questions. I sobbed. I can't say the words I said. My sister Lindsay said she would do it for me. And for that, I will forever be grateful. Everyone left except this stranger, my sister, and the boys. The words were said, a few questions were asked. It was silent. I said thank you. He walked out the door, and the nightmare began. The 3 of us went to bed that night. We would sleep in the same room for months. The boys and Patrick in my bed, and me on the floor. I laid in the darkness. What will this do to them? How will this change them? How will they survive this? Days were dark, school was missed. Life was so different, change every day. Yelling, crying, screaming, silence, fear, anger. They suffered, the suffering began. I lived in a fog and they did too. Grief and depression set in, pain so deep it took me over. I couldn't do anything. Sleep, think, focus, eat, read, work. I couldn't function. I would stay in bed for hours after the boys went to school. I would cry for days. I drank too much coffee and too much red wine. My family and friends cried with me. They listened to me scream. They took care of my boys. And my community fed us, and they sent us words of love and support. And then he called. Sandra, this is Doug. I'm checking in to see how you're doing. I'm not doing very well, Doug. Maybe it's time I come in. And it started. I met with Doug every week and sometimes twice a week. I was a shell. I was broken. My heart, my spirit, my mind, my body, my connection to others, my ability to trust, my ability to feel, my ability to handle the chaos of my new life. "You have no other choice, Sandra," Doug told me. "You live or die inside. Jack and Charlie already lost their dad. They don't need to lose you too." Doug listened. He guided me. He told me things about suicide, mental illness, death, and life I never knew. He opened my life beyond grief. He told me I was not crazy. He let me cry. He let me scream. He let me drop so many F-bombs, I scared myself. I've scared other people with my F-bombs, by the way. A lot of F-bombs. A lot. My mother actually told me one time, "Sandra," and I said, "Mom." He agreed with my doctor I needed antidepressants. He told me I needed to eat. He said he was proud of me for finding yoga and trying to take care of myself. He gave me tools to help me handle difficult situations I was in every day. My life was in pieces. Doug was helping me put the pieces back together. 4 years ago to this day, a moment happened that would lead me to make a life-defining decision. My friend Rachel was visiting from New York. Rachel and Pat grew up together in Neenah. We had become friends too. Rachel asked if I would like to go out for dinner. I hadn't been out much since Pat died. I wanted to go to Carmela's, our favorite restaurant. Pat loved Carmela's. We talked. I could tell something was holding her back. She wanted to ask about the day, ask about Pat. For almost a year, nobody talked to me about Pat. Nobody asked me why. Nobody asked me anything. But people I trusted, some people I thought were friends, asked to my face, "Were you having an affair? Was he a drug addict? How was your marriage? Do you feel guilty?" Brutal, insulting words, assumptions, judgments. Funny how nobody asked. Did he suffer from depression? How was his mental health? Did he struggle with anxiety? I know he was open about his challenges with OCD. How bad had it gotten? The unknown is scary. Suicide creates fear in people. People want an answer. They need a why. Pat was not a bad person. It was not my fault. He was sick, period. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Those words hurt me. They crushed me. They broke me. Back to that night at Carmela's, Rachel had the courage to ask. She asked, and I respect that. I said, "I want you to know." And she said yes. And I said, "Tell me what you've heard. Tell me what you think happened. Tell me why people think he did it." She told me. I listened. She finished. And I was very quiet. I said, "Rachel, the only thing you got right was that he died." And we were both silent. At that moment, I knew I could not stay in Appleton. I would not raise my boys here. We would not survive. Words, stories, assumptions, judgments. When you are at your lowest point, when you are broken, they destroy your spirit. I have learned an amazing life lesson from this, and the boys have too. Do not judge. Do not assume. Nothing is ever as it seems. It's not my business to comment. It's not my right to share a story that I do not know is true. Instead, I'm quiet. And I needed to protect my boys. I didn't know what people were saying to them. Jack and Charlie deserve to have a life to be Jack and Charlie, not Jack and Charlie with 1,000 people passing judgment on them. I knew we didn't belong here, and we needed to move. And 6 months later, I told Doug we were moving. He told me he was waiting for me to say it, that it was time to move. In that session, Doug said something to me that is burned in my mind. And every morning when I put my feet on the ground and I tell myself, "You can do this today, Sandra," I remember what Doug said. "Sandra, you are not running away. You are running to." I was running to peace. I was running to healing. I was running to a beautiful new life for the boys and I. Doug was right. Pat would have wanted us to run. My family and close friends wanted us to run. They knew we would not recover in Appleton, and it was time to go. I cried when I left Doug. He saved my life and he saved my boy's life. He helped me take my life back and he gave Charlie and Jack their mother back. I am a different person. How can I not be? Nothing in my life is like it was before, and every ounce of my being has changed. Doug helped me be okay with it. My counselors now have helped me be okay with it too. There is no guidebook to grief. There is no manual to being 40, widowed, raising 2 boys, and surviving the trauma of your husband dying by suicide. The first year was a blur. I felt dead inside. Dull, confused, depression set in. I couldn't eat or sleep. I was going through the motions and I thought I was losing my mind. The boys and I went to counseling every week and we needed help. The second year was worse. I woke up from my dark cloud of suffering, pain, and grief to a world unknown to me. I didn't know how to handle my new world. My depression got worse, anxiety crept in. The chatter and the chaos in my head was ever present. Other people's emotions and needs were coming to the surface and I couldn't handle my own or the boys, so how could I handle anyone else's? I retreated even more. Counseling and yoga were my only reprieve from my suffering in my heart and my head. And still my number one goal was to protect Jack and Charlie and guide them through their pain. Year 3, I thought I could find freedom from my darkness. We had moved to Fairfield, Connecticut and were starting over. New town, new schools, new life. I had quiet. I didn't have to live in a town where memories flooded my heart and my head everywhere I looked. I was now looking at a blank canvas. But starting over is not easy, especially when you're in survival mode. My anger, fear, grief, and despair continued to consume me. I still spent weeks in bed when the kids were at school. I was alone and isolated, and I knew I had to work really hard on me. More counseling. Hike, run, walk to the beach. I started to work out every day. I would spend hours sweating the sadness and the pain away. I had found some relief. We started to meet friends, but I still didn't trust people. I didn't talk much. I kept to myself. I kept our life simple. I could only handle living day by day. I was there for Jack and Charlie, but didn't know how to be there for myself. In year 4, something in me shifted. It was quiet when it happened. Mentally, I was letting go of my old ways, dealing with my loss, grieving Pat in our old life. I started to embrace our new life, and I finally woke up. I noticed color in trees and flowers. I felt the warmth of sunshine on my face. I heard birds chirping, people laughing, and the energy of New York City made me feel alive. I had lost that for 4 years. I started to have more good days than bad. I laughed more, I cried less. Simple things I found pleasure in. My eyes were wide open. I knew I needed to start to heal. I knew that my world was different and I needed to embrace it. Embrace the change, be grateful of what I had. 2 beautiful boys, a chance to start over, a new beginning. Grief and despair were still with me. I learned in counseling that I had to sit with it when it came. Push it away, stuff it, I will not heal. Peace was entering my heart. But I still was stuck, afraid to let go 100%, feeling guilty that I wanted to let go. More counseling, more sweating out the pain every day. Every day, though, fighting the fear inside of me, and it happened. The day year 5 began, September 8th, 2016. We were recovering from the stress, anxiety, and unknown September 7th brings to us every year. The boys were home from school. Days after holidays and important dates in our world are really tough. We are exhausted. We call it a death hangover. We hold it together, we get through those days, but we have to recover. The boys and I had a fight, an epic fight. Screaming, cursing, crying all around. A couple F-bombs were dropped. We have those fights. I realize it's when we can't all hold it together anymore. We have to let out our grief, anger, pain, and suffering together. We all blow and then we sit down and talk about our feelings. In counseling, we have learned how to communicate with each other. We are open and honest and respect each other's feelings. The boys told me how they were sad. I was still so sad. And Jack said, "Mom, Dad is gone. He's not coming back. You need to live your life." I realized at that moment that Jack and Charlie were right. I never let myself completely go and live again because I needed permission from them. I looked at them and said, "We really are okay, aren't we?" And we sat there and we talked about our future. We talked about the boys going to college, what I might do when they're gone, and we talked about how it was time to hang some pictures on the walls. Charlie wanted a tree planted outside. He wanted to feel like we lived in Fairfield. He wanted roots, and I wanted roots again too. From that moment on September 8th, 2016, my new life really started. My heart told me Jack and Charlie were finally okay. We were finally okay. They gave me the permission I was looking for to live again. I had worked so hard to get us here, it was time to start living. I knew there was a Sandra inside that was bolder, brighter, more adventurous, a learner, a giver, and alive, and I wanted her to come out. I wanted a life filled with laughter, filled with joy, filled with love, filled with hope, and filled with purpose. And I have been afraid, and I am no longer afraid. As Eleanor Roosevelt said, you gain strength, courage, and confidence by every experience in which you really stop to look fear in the face. You are able to say to yourself, I lived through this horror, and I can take the next thing that comes along. The boys and I have lived through horror. We have looked fear in the face time and time again, and I planted the tree and I hung the pictures, and I applied to graduate school at Fairfield University, and I was accepted. And this week I finished my first semester with honors in the Clinical Mental Health Counseling Master's Program. And being back in school has given me purpose, and I will be a professional counselor in 3 years. My hope is to offer the generous gift of empathy, compassion, guidance, and support to others grieving, just like Doug and our counselors do for the boys and I today. No fear here. The professional counselors in my life have given me guidance and support to help me be okay with me. They help me own the new life the boys and I have to lead, and they have helped me conquer my fear of living again. I am quiet, I am funny, I am empathetic, I am a good listener. I am present, I live a simple life. I don't need things, I need experiences. I can read again, I can focus again. I am okay when I want to crawl back in bed. I know I am no longer depressed. I'm just so tired from doing this on my own. I see a counselor every week, and I think I probably always will. I know I'm a great mom, and I am more present with Jack and Charlie than before Pat died. I still cry a lot, but those are tears mostly now of joy and peace. I put me first, no guilt, no regrets, just me. My mental and my physical well-being come first, because if I'm not good, they are not good. I feel grateful every day I can afford counseling. I don't always trust people, but I am working on that. I wear high heels every day because it feels really good. They don't like it when I wear high heels to basketball games, by the way. And I work out every day because I need to be healthy for those too. I have embraced pieces of my old life I want to keep, and I have let go of those I do not want. I am old and wise in spirit, and I have lived 40 years and 4. I know I am okay, and I am more than okay. I have hope again, and I have purpose again. And this is me, and I really like her. Counseling has helped me find the strength to make tough decisions and guide the boys through misery to beauty. The road has been long and ugly, and I didn't always trust we would get here. The loneliness and isolation of being a widow at times makes my heart so heavy. And I still have moments that torture me where the pain is unbearable. And I miss Pat every day. Sadness and grief will always be with us, but no longer consumes us. The man the 3 of us loved, who loved us, is gone. We lived a beautiful life with him, and we have learned to live a beautiful life without him. Losing it all makes you look at yourself raw and ripped open. I was afraid of what I saw for so many years, and I'm not afraid anymore. And what about you? Is fear holding you back? To live again, to love again, to say no more, to say yes less, to be physically healthy, to be mentally healthy? Professional counselors can help you face that fear. They are trained to lead you down a path to real change. Change is real. Change can happen, but it takes work, and it can be hard, and it's very scary. Start small, aim big, be the best you. Love your people, love your life, because you only get one. Life is worth living, trust me. It's beautiful when you do it. Thank you for having me and letting me share my story. You being here give women in this community the opportunity to search out counseling services they cannot afford. The money raised through this event affords help, healing, and the hope for a better and beautiful future. And one last thing. Tomorrow would be Patrick's 46th birthday. So if you will please raise your glass to help Jack and Charlie and I wish Pat a happy birthday, I would appreciate it. I'm gonna raise my glass. Cheers. Thank you.